public inquiry. I'll do that again. Good evening and welcome to this public inquiry on what it's like living under capita in Barnet, organized and presented by Barnet Alliance for Public Services. I am going to hand out 2 clipboards, and you're going to pass them around. One is just a sign-in sheet, right? This one, the kind of bluey green, just so we know who was here tonight. Some people have already signed in, thank you. This one is the Kick Out Capita petition. If you haven't signed it somewhere in some form and you would like to, then you can do that now as well. So, Holly, can I just start that one, and when you've started that one, you can pass that one as well. Okay, for anybody who doesn't know me, which is probably the majority of people here, I'm Barbara Jacobson. I'm a member of BAPS, and I'm happy to be chairing this meeting. This is how it'll work. We have quite a few people here who want to speak. They'll come up and they'll speak. In between them, we will have other people read the statements of people who couldn't be here in person tonight. Okay, so a little bit of theater, no reference. Is there anybody here who thought they were speaking but hasn't told us about it? Okay, then we'll get right down to it. The first person to speak is Keith Martin.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Mine is quite a recent experience. So it's in recently this year concerning the closure of Barnet High Street for the annual Christmas fair. And it concerned Ray, not Capita, but they're each outsourced as we know. I'm honorary treasurer of Barnet Borough Arts Council, whose team of volunteers runs the fair, which took place 2 days ago on Sunday, 2nd of December. We run it for the council as a public relations exercise for them, a fundraising exercise for the mayor's charities, and a fun day out for the community. Everyone concerned with it does so as a volunteer, with the exception of some paid entertainers, the police, and employees of Ray who, since acquiring a contract whose small print would appear to entitle the company to a gain share on their involvements, took over the closure of the street from the in-house council staff. One of my roles as treasurer is to prepare a budget for the event in conjunction with the Arts Council Committee and submit it to the Council Grants Officer, Ken Argent, to apply for a small grant towards the cost of the fair. The budget is designed to break even. This year the application was submitted on 15th of October and I received Ken's notice of a partial grant on 27th of November, with the fair due on 2nd of December and bills to be paid. The budget approved by the committee included £1,800 as the cost of street closure. So it came out of the blue to receive on 22nd of November an email from a Ray senior engineer at Barnet House, that's 1255 High Road, asking the Arts Council to pay a cheque for £2,027 to Barnet Council for this service. I replied straight away asking for the fee either to be reduced to £1,800, which is the figure I put in the budget, or waived entirely, and asking Ray to account for services to, asking how Ray account for services to other non-commercial users when roads are closed, for road accidents, floods, visits by the Queen, and the annual commemoration day Armistice Road closure. I've yet to receive a reply. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Keith.
Can I I just point out that RE actually is Capita, is a joint venture, if I remember correctly, between the council and Capita.
Yes.
So it is, again, Capita.
Okay. Martin, could you read Mr. Mustard's statement, please?
Yeah. I'm from Martin Smith from North Finchley, but reading out a statement supplied by Mr. Mustard. Capita lied to me. Once could be an accident, but not twice. I buy and sell properties in a small way. I pay full rates if the properties are empty, whilst being refurbished. To help with cash flow, I like to pay in instalments, and now by law, 12 instalments are possible rather than 10. I purchased property A in April 2016, and I asked to pay the council tax in 12 instalments, and this was their response. It's a quote from the letter. Thank you for your email dated 12 April 2016. I know that you are requesting to pay your council tax over 12 instalments. The 12 monthly payments is only available if you are paying your tax via direct debit. I then asked if this was law or a council rule, and in response I received a new council tax bill split into 12 instalments but no reply. I followed up for the reply and received this. I write to advise that the email of 16th May 2016 is not correct and apologise for the error. Payment of council tax can be spread over 12 months from April to March, and there is no requirement for that to be paid by direct debit. Please accept my apology for this error. I wondered how many people had been sent such a response, and this was the answer. Apparently only me, a blogger. How unlucky for Capita. Prior to the change in legislation enabling customers to request payment over 12 months, we did encourage direct debit take-up by allowing 12 instalments. This, I believe, is an isolated case and has been addressed with the staff member and further reiterated to staff. Capita, of course, is rewarded for the speed and recovery rate of council tax. It should not use unfair pressures to achieve that end. Having sold property A, I then purchased property B in September 2017. I emailed and asked for the council tax to be spread over 12 monthly instalments. Guess what? The same lie was sent to me by a different person to last time. This is the answer. Please note that in order to pay by 12 instalments, you are required to set up a direct debit. We are unable to set up 12 cash payments. Once again, I queried whether there was a proper basis for their decision. Guess what? There still wasn't. This is what they said this time. We apologise for the confusion, but 12 monthly payments are available without setting up a direct debit, and I have now amended your instalments. I wasn't confused, and I don't think Capita were either. It was a cynical lie to try and speed up the recovery rate of council tax. Far from being an isolated incident, there were two isolated incidents perpetrated by two different Capita employees. There is more chance of me winning the lottery than of two random employees making the same error. An organisation which is providing public services should do so honestly. I don't trust Capita at all. That's Mr. Mustard.
Next bit of evidence will come from Emily Burnham.
Hi, I'm Emily Burnham, a resident in East Finchley. Residents in East Finchley have been trying since 2010 to return the old barn site on Tarling Road to community use. It's too long a story to tell it all here, but I wanted to report on what I've witnessed in terms of Capita's involvement and the impact of outsourcing. As you may know, the council decided to cut back its community assets. So when the Somali Brahmi Centre on Coppets Road burned down in 2013 after an arson attack, the council took the opportunity to sell off that site and tell everyone that they could be rehoused at the old barn site along with the pre-existing groups there. That was in 2015. Fast forward 3 years, and although there is a new building on the site, there is no immediate prospect of it opening. If it does open, it's unlikely to be a proper community centre. Why is that? In my view, it's because of Capita mismanagement and incompetence, and the council hiding behind this to avoid its own embarrassment. From the beginning, Capita had no idea what it was doing with the community centre project. It's the first one it was working on in Barnet, and it was supposed to be a beacon for future projects. There have been a string of consultants paid a lot of money to do the same work again and again. There have been a series of meetings with the public, like me, and potential users of the centre. At each meeting, there's been a different set of Capita faces and a totally different set of answers. When one local organisation brought in a consultant with a lot of experience, she wasn't listened to in the meeting, but afterwards they offered her a job. As a result of this mess, immense time and money all of our time and money has been wasted while the councils failed to solve problems that were evident to residents at least from the start. A really expensive building has been put up that is too expensive to run. Community groups that were going to be offered a rent rebate are now going to be charged a service charge instead, which is a really expensive service charge. And guess what? The centre is now going to be marketed for commercial use on the grounds that local groups don't want it. Barnet and Capita keep telling us that the centre has to wash its own face. That means residents either have to foot the bill themselves by paying high charges for what are supposed to be community activities, or lose out on the community centre altogether. The building is in the middle of the Grange estate, an area of high need, and at this rate it is going to increase community tension rather than reduce it, as it was intended to do, and certainly fail to serve the people who live nearby. But there's certainly no risk of Capita being made to wash its own face with the mess they've created. We all know they've repaid £4 million for services that failed to meet the standard required. There's a very long list of those services, and this is one. Tarling Road is another example, and Capita should be held to account as well as those who hired them.
Right. Now we're going to hear from Shirin Patel through Holly.
Hello. I am off, this is accidentally, pretend I'm Shirin. I am often abroad, hence handle all matters via email and Skype. I set up a direct debit for council tax, and council tax for 2017-18 was paid up in full by the 28th of November 2017 with a £2 credit. I returned to the UK on 1st of August 2018 to find a London Borough Barnet tax bill for 2018-2019, reminders, court orders, and a bailiff notice, all of which I knew nothing about. I requested to communicate by email, but London Borough Barnet claimed email is not secure. I rang London Borough Barnet switchboard on the 2nd of August and, after going round in circles with London Borough Barnet customer services insisting they could not send the bill by email, and my saying that I was not always at the address to collect mail, suggested a UK forwarding address. This plan was accepted, although not offered as a solution by customer care. I was also not advised by customer care that I could register online to view my account. This was, in fact, suggested to me by a friend. Following the conversation with London Borough Barnet, I called up Equita immediately, not realizing at that point what their role was, and paid £635 for April to August 2018. Equita advised me to set up a monthly direct debit with a balance of £520.07 from September 2018 until January 2019. This was set up immediately by Equita, although I had not provided any bank details. A week later, 9th of August, on checking my bank account, I realized that the direct debit had been set up to Equita rather than London Borough Barnet. I cancelled the direct debit and rang London Borough Barnet and was told to write in, which I did by email, saying I wanted to pay by direct debit to London Borough Barnet, not Equita, and for London Borough Barnet to provide relevant details. In the meantime, I tried to open an online account with the council on the 7th of August so that I could manage it from abroad. However, I was continually unable to access it as it kept sending error messages. When I called customer services on the 9th of August, I was told to speak to Barnet Online, and only then was I told that the reason I could not access the online account was because I was in arrears. This is exhausting. I spoke to Revenue and Benefits and found out why I was still considered in arrears, as I had paid up to date and was told by a very rude operative named Carol that the account was still with Equita, and I should wait till London Borough Barnet to set up an account in order to create the direct debit to them. Then on the 18th of August, I checked my letterbox late at night to find a new bailiff notice, liability order, from Equita, stating that they were, quote, authorized under the Taking Control of Goods Regulation 2013 to enforce this order. As this was late on Saturday night, I was even more stressed, as there was nothing I could do till Monday morning. First thing on Monday morning, I went to Barnet House and inquired where and with whom I could talk about council tax. Unfortunately, I was met by a disrespectful and uncaring stonewalling and told that although the council tax department was in the building, I could not go there. No explanation was given, and that I should go to Hendon Library, something I was reluctant to do given the long journey by public transport and in case I were to meet with similar lack of assistance. In desperation, I rang customer care from the car park outside, and this time a kind operative, Ashton, hearing my frustration and desperation, informed me that a security incident had taken place on the previous Thursday, and that is why I could not go to the council tax department. When I said I just wanted to discuss the problem with someone face-to-face, I was informed that Barnet does not provide a face-to-face service. Ashton, however, looked up my case and found that the original email that I had sent asking for the direct debit to be set up with London Borough Barnet and not Equita has not been received, although I'm sure that I had an automated acknowledgement. I was asked to resend the email, and Ashton would, in the meantime, send an urgent email to the corporate department and ask them to, quote, pull back the account from Equita. Well, he could not guarantee that it would be done, and although, as I learned later, they should have canceled it as soon as I had paid. I returned home and resent the email and also contacted my MP. The next day, 21st of August, I received a response by email from enforcement@barnet.gov.uk that the, quote, recovery of arrears will remain with Equita, and you should set up an arrangement with them to clear the remaining £520.07 on your 2018-19 liability line. Consequently, I contacted Equita to do this and was informed that my case was with their agent, Martin Orton, and I should contact him. I was given his number. I rang him, he was driving, and I spoke to his associate, who informed me that they hadn't paid me a visit, and that she couldn't find reference and would call back in a few hours to sort out the payment. At 5 p.m., Mr. Orton rang back and said that he would take the payment with great trepidation. I paid by credit card over the phone to a completely unknown party. When I asked him for a reference to the payment, he told me that he would ask Equita to issue a receipt. I immediately rang Equita, and after a very rude operative put down the phone on me, I spoke to another who said only the agent can check that Equita has received the payment. When I asked for some reference for him, I was told that since I had been told his name by Equita, that proved that he works for Equita. And that since the number I rang him on was the one given to me by Equita, it similarly shows that he works for Equita. I was asked to call his office, quote, she has that in quote, his mobile number, and told, quote, leave it in his hands. He works for Equita in the bailiff department. It is completely in his hands, unquote. At nearly 7 p.m., Martin Orton told me that all is sorted, quote, that all is sorted, the account is down to zero, unquote. On the 25th of August, I received a formal notice from Equita dated 22nd of August that, quote, all monies received, unquote. In the meantime, I was trying to get a full breakdown from Equita and London Borough Barnet of the payments I had made, but till then, I had not received any response. This in itself was another round of fruitless phone calls with Equita, 30th of August, one of whose operatives, Clem, was totally respectful, well done Clem, and combative, while another, Mo, was, to put it mildly, cavalier. London Borough Barnet, on the other hand, were helpful, but it was not till the MP's intervention that I heard from London Borough Barnet on the 6th of September regarding my earlier queries. A statement was also sent on the 6th of September by post to the forwarding address, although it did not give a full account of all the monies paid in total. From my calculations, I reckon that I overpaid by £172, which may have been court and bailiff costs. I feel that the London Borough Barnet customer services do not care. I am not a customer, I am a taxpayer and resident of the borough. I do not have the option of a customer to take my custom elsewhere.
That's why Capita needs to go.
Now,
I feel exhausted.
in person,
Imagine how she feels.
Yeah, imagine.
in person, John Dix, Mr. Reasonable.
Wow, full house. I've got a short talk, it's really short, and it's what I've called Capita's contractual conjuring trick. So rather than go over the same old ground, because we've all heard the problems of Capita, I thought it would be useful to give you a simplified version of something interesting that came out of a meeting last Friday, when Barnet did the deal with Capita in return for a £4 or £2 million cheque. So rather than give it to you in detail, because it's quite complex, what I've done is create a scenario which I hope helps you to understand what this is all about. So imagine in 2013 I knocked on your door and I asked if you were on a standard variable tariff for your energy contract. You were, so I said, great, over the next 10 years I can save you £3,000 on your energy bill, but in return I get to keep 40% of the savings. Now, I don't know whether that sounds a good deal or not, but in this case you agreed, so I got you to sign a contract. The next thing I did was direct you to the U-Switch website, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with, where you found an energy deal. Next thing, you get a bill from me for 120 quid, which represents 40% of the first year's savings. Now, I'm sure if that really happened to you, you'd be pretty angry, given that all that I really did was point you at a deal's website. But the thing is, I've got really good lawyers, they're really smart, and they wrote a really watertight contract. So for the next 4 years, I continue to send you an invoice for 120 quid every year. So today, 5 years later, that energy deal comes to an end. You'd think the invoices would stop, but no. I can continue to send you an invoice every year because I was the one that told you to use U-Switch, and any deal you do on U-Switch is usually guaranteed to be better than the standard variable tariff at the time. Now, that sounds like a long story, but actually it mirrors almost exactly what has happened on a number of the gain share contracts with Capita. Now, the deal last week that was signed would in effect get rid of those ongoing invoices. But the downside is we will still be stuck with a lousy service from Capita. The big issue is, were there ever any real savings in the first place? And my opinion is there weren't. So the next time Richard Cornelius says to you, Capita are saving us £1 million a month, just think about U-Switch and tell him it's Capita's contractual conjuring trick.
And we could now have Jennifer read a statement by Natalie Lawrence.
Hi, I'm Jennifer from Finchgate. This is Natalie Lawrence. Hello, thanks for your email about the public inquiry into Capita running Barnet Council services. Whilst I cannot attend tomorrow, I would like to register my experiences of using services recently. I have had to call them a few times this year and Capita seem hell-bent on making it impossible to contact them. In March 2018, I was assaulted by a Barnet Homes tenant. I contacted the community safety team via telephone several times and no one answered. Emails were not answered either. It was only when I complained to one of my local councillors that I got a contact email and then had to call them to respond to my complaint. At the moment, I and my neighbours are also experiencing problems with our bin collection. Again, I phoned the number provided on the website, but no matter which option I tried, no one gave me the option of going through to an actual person to speak to. Reporting incidents on the specific specified website page, as I've done in the past, has resulted in no follow-up contact at all, so I'm never sure my complaint has been read or acted upon. Barnet Council needs to start acting as if they're accountable to its residents. It should not be the case that they take our money and make themselves invisible and uncontactable. It is also rude not to respond to residents with complaints about their services or urgent issues around their safety. Kind regards, Natalie Lawrence.
Right, and we could now hear from Helen Davis.
Hi there, I work for Barnet Council and I'm the chair of the local Unison branch. The culture I brought with me as I entered the council service was about sticking with someone until their issues were sorted and or reliably I passed them on. This does not seem to be the case now with Capita run services, as residents are just a customer to be processed. I work off-site in a hospital. On occasions I have to ring into the council to speak to a member of staff who may have more detailed knowledge of the case I'm working on. If a colleague is there, great. If not, it's hell. Hospital work is fast-paced. You don't know if the colleague is away for a few hours or a few days. But I need that information. When the call centre was run from Barnet, the telephonists got to know departments and colleagues. If you couldn't reach the person you needed, they could usually put you through to someone else in the team or on that floor so you could get an idea of where the colleague is and when they are likely to be around to speak to. Now this is not possible. The call centre is not in Barnet, so they don't know who you want to speak to or who else could help instead. I can't imagine what this must mean for residents trying to speak to someone, but we've just heard. Information on the website is managed by Capita. I have experienced the call centre contradicting the information on the website, and so it meant I couldn't refer a distressed young woman onto a service which might have usefully assisted her. Capita developed a new database for managing the case system for service users with adults and communities. This was late in delivery by around 18 months, and the one thing it was supposed to really assist with was to give the senior managers an accurate overview of their spend. Currently, there are now daily panels consisting of very senior managers sifting through piles of paperwork prepared for workers so that every penny can be accounted for, as the system has not delivered on this. Ironic when you think of the poor controls which enabled the Capita fraud to take place. More recently, a glitch in the Mosaic system, that's the database name, meant for a while new service users could not be inputted into the database at all, and separate files had to be kept. This work now has to somehow be uploaded onto the database. The cost to the service and you is over £4 million, as another group have had to replace Capita to identify solutions. Meanwhile, I'm seeing colleagues in children's centres who are being made redundant for the lack of £500,000. We must not forget, finally, that in running to become a commissioning council, the eyes of the very senior managers were off the ball when it came to safeguarding children, and family services became rated inadequate by Ofsted. This was part of the conclusion reached by the Ofsted Commissioner Frankie Sulky and can be read on the council website. Whilst this is not a failure which can be laid at the feet of Capita alone, it is an expression of the culture which these contracts brought into the council, the fragmentation, the focus on processes and money rather than people.
Martin, could you come and speak for Amatari?
This is evidence supplied by Amatari, a local college student. In February 2016, Barnet Council sent me a letter about the Freedom Pass renewal, and on the paper was a simple question: do I have learning difficulties, stroke disabilities and autism, which I never want to admit to, by the way. I ticked yes, as it did not say on the letter that my Freedom Pass will expire, because the expiry date of mine is 31st March 2020. I wondered at the time what was the fuss, but I posted the letter in the post box, and then 1 month later, on Wednesday 16th of March, I was making my way to pick my brothers up at their primary school while the college was closed for staff training day. I went on the bus and I touched my Freedom Pass on the reader and it said not accepted. I was like, what? I kept touching again and I showed the bus driver with my Freedom Pass card and he let me through. But the next day, Thursday the 17th of March, I was making my way to the college by the Northern Line tube train. I touched my Freedom Pass again and it said seek assistance. So I stopped by at Finchley Central and I asked the ticket inspector what is wrong with my faulty Freedom Pass. He asked me, have you received a letter from the council? And I replied yes. He told me the Freedom Pass will no longer work on the tube, buses, trams and National Rail. I could not believe why this was happening to me about my Freedom Pass, rejected by Conservative-led Barnet Council with no reason whatsoever. I told my mum about my Freedom Pass being blocked, and she called London councils who issued Freedom Pass cards for disabled and older people. She told them that my Freedom Pass has been deactivated and blocked. They said to her on the phone that it wasn't them, London councils, who blocked me from using my Freedom Pass card. It was Barnet Council and Capita, who of course is the private outsourcing firm in charge of Freedom Passes for Barnet, who had done this. When Mum called the council on the phone, it was a female member of staff. She wanted to call the manager of the council, and the staff person said to Mum, no, there is no manager, only me. My mum said to her, I want to appeal against the deactivation of my son's Freedom Pass card. She said no to the appeal. The member staff was disrespectful and unhelpful to my mum for wanting to appeal against the blocking of my Freedom Pass. It had been difficult for me to travel to the college every day and to pick my brothers up at the primary school because I've been using Oyster card and discount bus and tram photo card up to 8 weeks from mid-March to early May in order to top up the Oyster every time I ran out of balance. Luckily for the victims like myself, I had to appeal, including with the help from my mum, in order to get the disabled Freedom Pass back. So I got my free travel pass back from the council, and it is still functionally working. It's been restored, but since then I have not experienced any errors. In September 2016, Barnet Council had launched a consultation about disabled Freedom Passes, which lasted until November 2016, and feedback was January 2017. The moment when my free travel pass was rejected wrongly, I had been messaged directly to anyone that I know, including the Barnet blogger, Roger Tichborne, explaining how it happened, and strangely, and within weeks, he published my experience of how Tory Barnet Capita blocked my free pass. On Monday, 4th April 2016. Then weeks later, another strange incident happened in the relation to Freedom Pass cancellations. It happened to somebody I know. Her name is Jenny. I thought I was the only person, but it turned out that it happened to every single disabled person's Freedom Pass users, and it affected 230 victims like myself, and 2 people, including Jenny, I know from my high school, which is Oak Lodge. And that 2008 Freedom Passes were wrongfully revoked by Capita and Barnet Council. And that is how it became a scandal in Barnet, the Freedom Pass fiasco. I thanked Roger, Teresa, a broken Barnet blogger, and Julia for doing their hard efforts by digging the truth out of how it really did happen in Barnet. And I won the Barnet Eye Award for 2016 Person of the Year. I never looked back as I kept continuing with my life. Apart from that, I still receive no compensation from the council. Well, that's fine, although I did receive a refund from Transport for London, as I did decide to cancel the Oyster card that I used for 8 weeks since I received my restored travel pass. It was £34.10 refund, plus my pay-as-you-go Oyster balance credit, which was £29.10, plus the deposit was £5 and administration fee was zero. It took a month for me to cancel the Oyster card, and I did speak to staff on the phone about it. This will not mean I forget that Barnet and Capita have done the heinous act, and neither should you. But I do acknowledge Barnet Council's mistake, and I do acknowledge that I accept their apology. If Barnet Council really want to cancel a disabled person's Freedom Pass until further notice, they would have to send letters to all Freedom Pass holders like myself to let them and me know in advance before doing so, in effect with a reason. Unfortunately, they did not do that, and that's not what I remember from 2 years ago. What I do remember from 2 years ago was that the letters were sent to everyone, including me, and everyone who holds free bus pass cards at the time. And if I could, I would have taken a picture of it. It was about renewing the Freedom Pass, which was turned out to be a scam, and Capita and Barnet Council had failed to realise and understand that a disabled Freedom Pass expiry date is 31st of March 2020, not 2016, because the previous expiry date was 2015 on the 31st of March. All that lack of understanding and utter contempt by Barnet and Capita, the Freedom Pass cock-up story, happened strangely 1 month later. After all, it did not say on the letter that Freedom Passes will be cancelled. I know that Barnet Council will not make the same mistake ever, and I do hope and pray that they won't do it again. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. If it does happen, then it wouldn't just be all over Barnet, it would be all over London, and possibly it would be all over the UK and maybe international. That is something that I do not wish to imagine. So I think that the 2016 Freedom Pass scandal in Barnet should be a reminder to vote out the Tories by this year's council election.
That was obviously written before the last election and didn't get wide enough circulation.
Right.
We're going to hear from a member of the Save Barnet Libraries campaign, a reading.
I'm Irini Rodis for Save Barnet Libraries. I was shocked to hear yesterday about new and drastic cuts to school funding, and it was with a similar sense of disgust and concern which got me involved with Save Barnet Libraries some years ago when the libraries were threatened. Public libraries should provide free and equal access to all. As kids, we used to walk there alone and feel welcome. What a shame that our modern screen-addicted children can no longer do the same. During unstaffed hours, which is most of the time, the PIN code system locks out every child up to the age of 15 unless accompanied by an adult who is carrying a card and the PIN. Freedom of Information reports show a large drop of a third in teenage reading last year, and the summer reading challenge was taken up by only half the usual number last summer. Children's books now also incur fines. During unstaffed hours, we also have a locked toilet syndrome. Last week, a parent had to take her young daughter to urinate in the car park outside. I'm sure that's not the sort of safeguarding that they had in mind when they locked the toilets. Other excluded folk include those with special needs or who are vulnerable with health or mobility problems. One elderly gentleman was seen taking out his bank details trying to get into the PIN code system. More staffed hours would solve the above issues. Our library staff have had a terrible time. Many have lost their jobs, their pensions have been neglected, yet they had to clean up the mess of a massive data loss in 2016 caused when Capita failed to do an IT backup. Capita charges the council coffers, that's our money, £8 every time anyone phones the library service, only to get through to a call centre, not a librarian, giving us even less value for money. The library service made £150,000 in community and private rental in the years before the changes.
Yet Barnet Council has stripped the library service of all its assets. They now pay rent to Capita to manage buildings where they are slow to make repairs or conduct fire safety maintenance, and have only managed to make a fraction of their target rental income. Overtime paid to fix Capita's mistakes and employment of security guards are significant costs of the short-term planning when made with profit in mind rather than the needs of the local community. I'd like to know, what are we paying for? What are we paying for this so-called service? Is the council's plan to lock enough people out to engineer a perceived lack of use and justify selling off the real estate? I scrimp in order to pay my council tax, yet the council continues to waste that money on Capita contracts, which have proven to be a false economy. They have been outsourcing work with such shoddy results that they have agreed to pay the council over £4 million in compensation. Can we have some of that money put back into the Barnet Library system, please, to make it function properly again? I ask the council decision makers to stop hiding behind Capita, discontinue the Capita contracts and bring services back in-house in a more cost-effective way. That is all. Thank you.
Holly, would you read from X of East Finchley? X of East Finchley. Somebody who needs to remain anonymous.
I've had a single person discount that's been approved year on year. I'd always replied promptly to the council's requests for documents, etc. Then one day, in 2014, I got bills with charges back for every year from 2006-07, as if I hadn't had my discount approved by the council. A nightmare scenario followed. Calling the council was wasting my time, and to my emails I never got a reply from the same person, and never within 5 days, as they should. Hence, there was no continuity in the communication, and my arguments were basically ignored. One day I discovered that the council helped themselves to around £2,000 from my bank account to repay my debt. Fortunately, my bank agreed to cancel this charge right away. I carried on writing to the council and sending them the documents that they requested, as if I hadn't sent the very same documents years earlier. I involved one of my councillors who was helpless too. Eventually, our disagreement was over a few £100s. Then they started sending me red bills and threats of legal action. I decided to pay rather than bear the increasing stress. Capita were bullying me until their victory. Needless to say that I cancelled my direct debit to Barnet Council and instead have been making monthly payments through bank transfers. Occasionally, I receive bullish texts. £136 council tax is overdue on account. Pay now. This is upsetting, but I ignore it, knowing now that we, the council taxpayers, are charged by Capita for incoming phone calls to the council. Over the last year, I've been contacting the council health environment, Capita, about an acute problem of rats that have penetrated the space under the floors of my terrace house. I've been thrown like a ball between the council and Thames Water, two privatized public services that seem to focus mainly on telling us that this is not for them to deal with. The rats are unperturbed. Unfortunately, I recently discovered a crack on the party wall in my house. An engineer that examined it advised me that it was likely caused by a new rear extension that my next-door neighbors had built recently. I hadn't been served a party wall notice. Who should oversee that this is done? I was advised to call Barnet's Capita building inspectors for details of what foundation had been approved. Again, they know nothing, as the inspection was done by another private company. Hooray! We are customers, and we are given a choice. Needless to say that I can't get anywhere with that private company that is ignoring me. I'll have to employ a solicitor unadvised.
Tears up.
I am an adult social worker by profession, and as such, I'm very aware and wary of fault hazards. my clients dread me getting into their homes and pointing all the rugs that needs to be removed and the clutter of furniture and so on. So the first issue I'd like to speak about is the state of the pavements in my Finchley Street and the streets around. This is actually the state of many streets around the borough. It is appalling. Many broken or unstable slabs, raised tarmac around, trees' roots, trees' branches who grow into the pavement and obstruct the path, sometimes in parts of the pavements that are narrow to begin with. I have elderly and disabled neighbors who are scared to go out because they are scared to have a fall. I sympathize with that because I know from my work the downward spiral of a fall to an elderly or frail person, or someone with Parkinson is one of my neighbors. Even a young woman, cleaner of another elderly neighbor of mine, had a fall in our street, was injured and lost days of work. I live in my street for about 20 years, and I don't remember when the pavements were checked or repaired ever. Maybe my memory, I don't know. So this is an ongoing issue in our area, and I know Mrs. Angry as well brings it up as I do and other residents in Residents Forum for several years. Last time I brought it up was in the July